Hey folks, how's it going? I'm back. Um, I recently put up a channel update where I was asking for questions and whatnot, and one of my viewers, whose name is Shadows1028, asked he would like to see my top 10 most meaningful albums from your teenage years or 20s. And out of all the things I thought that would be a really cool channel idea to go through, different genres. And as it stands, my early years, I graduated high school in 1989, so I'm fortunate enough to be old enough to have gone into the extreme metal scene at a still relatively early age, and was able to kind of grow up with it from its heyday onward, and enough to get into all sorts of different genres. But the 80s for me were very much my formative years when it comes to metal, thrash metal in particular, and to this day it remains one of my all-time favorite genres. I love death metal. I'm in a death metal band. I love black metal. I own a label that puts out black metal albums. I love all that stuff. But if I'm in a shitty mood and I'm trying to get back into a better place, I'm putting on thrash metal, which honestly I've been listening to a lot of thrash metal lately and realizing there's a ton of shit I've missed over the years. There's just before the scene kind of took a back seat to death metal and black metal, it was hitting an oversaturation point. But anyway, let's not talk about that right now. Let's first of all salute youth and the 80s thrash metal scene. Cheers. Yeah. All right, I'm going to wimp out here. Okay. He said top 10, and I got to thinking about it, and there is no way in hell I was going to be able to pick a top 10. Narrowing it down, I'll show you a number 1, but the rest of these are all just sort of in a state of flux as far as however I pulled them out. There's nothing here particularly rare or obscure, or me trying to be Culty McCulterson, because that wouldn't be honest. And all this music has a profound connection with me. It had a huge impact on my youth and my growing up. So I'll just start. And first album is my favorite by this band, and it is Feel the Fire by Overkill. This is an original pressing. And this album, they become more of a thrash metal band as they progressed. And this album, there is definitely a thrash element, but there's also a kind of a sleazy heavy metal undertow to this. But and maybe a little bit of punk mixed in. And honestly, this is my favorite of theirs. This and Horror Show, Horoscope. God, my brain is... I already had one shot and I'm already stupid. I love the catchiness of this album. I love the raw production. I love the garagey production of it. And the Dead Boy Sonic Reducer cover is very cool as well. But this is... I've listened to this album probably 15 million times and still never gets old. Next up, people might think this is a little odd, but I really connected with the emotive... feel of this album and this band, to be honest with you, and that is Anacrusis Reason. I really like the lyrics on this, and as a angsty teenage boy, not that I was super angsty, but we all went through our stuff, and I really connected on an emotional level with this album. I love the uniqueness of it. It was really powerful, technical type of thrash with bizarre, screechy, piercing vocals of Ken Nardi, but he could also sing, and it was that soulful croon in his vocals that really ignited those poignant lyrics. This is a great thrash album, as is all of their albums, really. They got a little more proggy, I think, as they progressed, but this album rules, and you should definitely check it out if you have not heard it. probably not going to give super huge explanations for all this stuff, other than maybe a small point of reference of how I connected with it, because this would be a 4-hour long video if I wanted to wax poetic about each of these albums. Next up is my favorite from the band Sodom, Persecution Mania. You know, everybody says they prefer the early stuff, Obsessed by Cruelty and the EP, all that stuff. And that shit's great, don't get me wrong, but man, they really honed in on the German thrash feel on this. They cleaned up their act. They weren't as sloppy and messy. It was just straight ahead, evil sounding, but powerful thrash. And their songwriting never got more aggressive, never got more powerful to me than they did on this album. Yeah, I liked Agent Orange a lot. I like Tapping the Vein. I've liked stuff that they've done throughout the years, but none of it touches Persecution Mania. I don't know what the combination was on this album, but you know, Christ Passion, Nuclear Winter, I mean, fucking classic thrash. And, you know, German, they're a reason why they're part of the big four of the German thrash scene, because I think this album sets the tone for... I wish they could have gotten back to this feel. I know they've done somewhat better. I don't like their punkier stuff. I kind of wish they would just stick to thrash. But anyway, next up is, this is such a corporate whatever album, but man, when this thing came out, I listened to this thing a million times, and that is Anthrax Among the Living. You know, I could have been cooler and said Fistful of Metal, which I own, love that album. I love Spreading the Disease. But I think when this thing came out, I listened. I was so ready for this album, and I just completely immersed myself in it. And I don't need to sit here and tell you what Anthrax sounds like, but, you know, my teenage years, these guys were constant rotation in my house. Constant. And these next two are in the same vein. Slayer, Rain and Blood. It's nice and short, so you can play it a million times a day, and I did, believe me. You know, I think my second favorite Slayer album is Show No Mercy. I love the new wave of British heavy metal emulation on that. I love the riffs. I love the songs. It was definitely a Slayer album that sounds like no other Slayer album. But this album took great songwriting and just kicked up the intensity to fucking, 10. And again, I don't need to sit here and tell you about this band, because you all have this. Some people prefer Hell Awaits. Some people prefer Show No Mercy. I like both of those albums just fine, but this album, perfect. Next up is Megadeth, Rest in Peace. I'm a big fan of the debut. I'm a big fan of Peace Sells. I hate fuck 'em. So Far So Good. I hate that album. And I cannot believe that they put out So Far So Good one first and then came out with this album afterwards, because this album obliterates essentially their entire catalog. I mean, I love the first two albums, and this album, smoking. The songs are so good. The guitar playing so fantastic. And I can understand why Dave Mustaine would be so wrecked to be kicked out of his band Metallica. You know, he connected with that band. He had a foothold in helping that band get off the ground, and be kicked out the way he was sucks. But this album, for me, is a statement. It completely negates the entire Metallica catalog, just for the sheer ferocity, the technical playing, the guitar work, the bluesy, razor sharp riffs. Holy Wars, of course. Take No Prisoners. Rust in Peace, Polaris. Poison Was the Cure. I mean, there isn't a bad song on this album. Even, Dawn Patrol, which is weird and whatever, but love this album. This is still in rotation. Next up, Holy Terror, Mind Wars. These guys, along with Violence, are the two best things that come out of the U.S. as far as thrash goes. And I don't think people realize how good this band was, and this album is superior album. I mean, I love their first album, but this thing, oh my God, you could tell they were on tons of speed, so fast. The riffs are so insane. I remember buying this on cassette when it came out, Camelot Music in the mall in Traverse City, walking out, getting in my truck, putting it in, and all the hair on the back of my neck stood up. for the first fucking minutes of Judas Reward is just like, holy fuck. And to this day, I'm almost glad they ended here because, I mean, they left the world a fucking stunning statement with this album. Completely amazing technical and catchy thrash. The singer died. I can't remember his fucking name right now because I have a buzz going. Dean. Can't do him like that. Keith Dean. No one sounded like him. I mean, you know, Sean Killian from Violence had a similar crooning style, but Keith Dean just spit out the fucking venomous rapid fire vocals. So good. If you have not heard Holy Terror's Mind Wars, this is an essential purchase. That's it for the CDs. Now we're getting into the vinyl. How are we doing? First up, Corner, R.I.P. I love the first 4 Corner albums. They're all great in their own way. I almost picked No More Color first because I listened to a shit ton of that album. And, you know, although Punishment for Decadence was a technically stunning album, the vocals were too low in the mix. They did that on purpose, which I think sucks. They still like Skeleton on Your Shoulder. How could you not fucking be blown away by that song? And No More Color righted that wrong. They had the perfect mix on that, and the songs had a more emotive undertow to them. This album is unlike the rest of their albums. I really like the dark atmosphere on this thing. The songs are so good. They're technical while being really dark. The production is different. It's more of a full, kind of a unique production. It really made these guys something. I mean, they are special, but they stood out from a lot of the thrash bands coming out of Germany at the time, even though their demo had Tom Warrior singing on it, which is fucking killer, by the way. Death Cult's awesome. But this is a great record. Check it out if you haven't heard it. Next up, oh, well, we have to do a shot for this album. Sorry. We have to. This is, can't get around this. So, yes, cheers to this next album. Wrong pipe. Creator, Extreme Aggression. Now, I honestly could have went through Pleasure to Kill. Oh man, they went down the wrong pipe. Pleasure to Kill. Sorry guys, I went down the wrong pipe with that whiskey. Could have easily been on this list because I love that album. I love the raw aggression of it. I love the early black metal tinges of it. And Terrible Certainty, you know, they streamlined their thrash. You know, still razor sharp, aggressive, but the songs started taking better form. But this album, this really embraced the social, political, lyrical slant of Milla. And man, I still spin this fucking record all the time. This is the remaster, obviously. This is a 3 LP set. It's Extreme Aggression and the Live in East Berlin when the Berlin Wall fell down. Fucking great record, man. Betrayer, I mean, that was a single off this album. Extreme Aggressions, No Reason to Exist, Some Pain Will Last, Bringer of Torture. There is not a throwaway track on this album. Guitar work is great. I mean, this was still the core early lineup. This is before Frank Blackfire got in. I am not a fan of Coma of Souls. There's some good songs on it, but I think they totally declined on that record. It sounded burned out, to be honest, but this album is fucking perfection. 10 out of 10 record, other than the cover is lame. But if you have not heard this album, definitely do yourself a favor. It is ultimate German thrash metal to the core. Next up, I'm a big Nuclear Assault fan, and I almost picked Survive, but I had to think of what I heard of first, and this album was the one I heard first. No one sounds like Nuclear Assault, even to this day. I mean, they put out that Pounder mini CD here a while ago when they reformed. Still sounds like Nuclear Assault. No one sounds like Nuclear Assault, and for that, it's a very refreshing. back in these days when I was a teenager and this stuff was coming out, every single one of these bands had their own sound. Every band, even from the same area, I don't know if it was the different amps they used, but they all had their own distinct sound. Sodom sounded nothing like Creator. Holy Terror sounds nothing like Nuclear Assault. They don't sound anything like Violence, even though they could be in the same genre. But Nuclear Assault, being involved in the New York hardcore scene and kind of, kicking that vibe up a bit with, turbocharged thrash metal, thanks to Danny Lilker. I'm sure his influence had a big say about that. This is great. John Connolly, no one sounds like him. His yelling, drunken yelling style. It's melodious yet unhinged. This is just a great, great fucking record. And they put out great records up through Handle with Care. The stuff after I'm not as familiar with. I kind of started fading into the death metal void at that point and didn't follow them as much. But I would expect that they were still doing something somewhat decent. I need to definitely check out those other albums. Next up from England, it was either this or Onslaught's The Force, which is another favorite of mine, but this one won out in the last decision. This is Sabbat with Dreamweaver. This is Andy Sneap, who is now guitar player for Judas Priest. He was also in the band Hell. Some other stuff, world-renowned producer for metal. But thrash on this is great. For an English band, they don't really sound English to me. They sound actually kind of German. I don't know. It's really weird. This band is weird, but the defining moment for this band is Martin Walkyier. Right there. He is, I guess, when did this come out? 86, 87, 88? Fuck, I don't know. I don't remember. But he's almost like speed rapping on this. There are so many. This is a concept album. It's about a Christian and a pagan going on a trek together. I don't remember. It's been so long since I've read them, but there's actually a fucking novel worth of lyrics in this. And Martin completely lambastes the entirety of the music on this album with lyrics. Rapid fire, fucking venomously spit fucking vocals. He's outstanding, and he's got a very distinct character to his vocals. And these guys are great. History of a Time to Come, that came out before it, was maybe a little more straight, weird thrash with a dark satanic overtone. This here, they embrace the pagan sense that Martin was trying to portray. So this is more pagan-based than satanic. But fantastic album. The first two albums are great. The one after this, The Morning is Broken, different singer, different vibe. It's crap compared to this. Definitely check this album out. Speaking of American bands that really towed the line of super emotive music, Trouble's Run to the Light really tug at my heartstrings for whenever I was in a downed and depressed mood. This album would go on, and it seemed to make it even more so. I could have grabbed Candlemass, but I chose this instead because I listened to this in Candlemass a lot back in the day, but this album won out just for the fact that there is just such a emotive vibe to this album. Again, they don't sound like anybody else. I love the first three albums. I love the fourth album. I remember when that came out, I bought it, and I was very disappointed at the bluesy groove to it, but it still sounded like Trouble. I love Bruce Franklin's guitar tone and his riff writing style, very Sabbathy. But this is a great record. White metal, if you want to call it that. Run to the Light, very powerful and moving compositions. The lyrics, the way Eric Wagner sings is very soulful and mournful. This is an amazing album. It's a good moody piece to stir those sad teenage emotions. Cheers. I don't know, I'm cheered. There's hardly any booze in this. Anyway, next up on the German tip, this band to this day is a big deal for me. And the first time I heard Ride the Sky by Germany's Halloween, which to this day remains a speed metal / power metal classic. Ride the Sky If you're unsure about power metal, listen to the song Ride the Sky off of this album, and there is no denying how perfect of a fucking song that is. The twin guitar melodies, the driving intensity of it, the hooks, the catchy choruses, the fucking everything about it. And this is a speed metal record. I think Halloween, about the time they got to the Keeper of the Seven Keys albums, they kind of slid into more of a power metal style, which is fine. But they still kind of, there's moments of their music with those twin guitar harmonies that they still play to this day. It came from the very first EP they ever put out, and all that shit is fucking great. This band is still great, and eventually I'm going to do a Halloween Andy Darris era overview of all their albums, which I have within the last year and a half fallen in love with, endlessly in love with that stuff. Halloween's great. They remain in my fucking rotation. My kid even loves the Andy Darris years. He loves them, so it's really nice to be able to share that with him. Next up, this is easily my favorite Maiden record, Iron Maiden Killers. Yep, Bruce ended up defining the Iron Maiden sound, but Bruce Paul Di'Anno, I think he was a great punky singer. He brought a little melody to the punk crassness and delivery. There is not a bad song on this record. I mean, this is the Harvest pressing. There is not a bad song on this. Every song is fucking classic. Wrathchild, Murders in the Rue Morgue, Another Life, Genghis Khan, Innocent Exile, Killers, Twilight Zone, Prodigal Son, Purgatory Drifter. Perfect fucking record. Another 10 out of 10 record. And yeah, I think Bruce took it to more melodic, more operatic heights, more showmanship, more theatrics live. He really extended the life of this band, but the first two Maiden records are great, and the first one is good, but this fucking album is on point, 100%. Again, 10 out of 10 record, my favorite by them. Next up, England, black metal, Venom. This was during the satanic panic that I ended up finding out about Venom, I think thanks to the evangelicals. And yeah, thanks guys. Thanks Jack Van Impe, or whoever the fuck it was that I was watching. This album is great. I love the first three Venom records. This is by far the best for me, just for the song alone, Sacrifice. Fucking love that song. Raise the Dead. I even like Teacher's Pet. Stupid lyrics, but the attitude, the fuck you, raw, the punkish attitude is there. Don't Burn the Witch. Oh, fuck. Such a great record. There's a reason why people get this fucking cover tattooed on their body, because it's cornball Satanism. They don't mean it. It's so fucking good. You can't beat the first three albums by Venom. Listen to the shit out of that when I was a kid. And also this album. No denying, Metallica's first three albums are fucking, they set the world on its ass. And I love I was having a hard time choosing, because I listened to a lot of Ride the Lightning, and I liked Kill 'Em All, but Master of Puppets really brought it all together. The songs got more epic and more polished. They really rounded off the edges in their fucking songwriting. I like the raw intensity of Fight Fire with Fire and shit like that off of Ride the Lightning, but man, you get that too here on Damage Incorporated. The powerful moving piece that is Orion, Leper Messiah, Welcome Home Sanitarium. They took social and political tones and mixed it in with the Metallica formula, and I've listened to the shit out of this record. I think we all have. If you come up during this time, there's no way of avoiding Metallica. They set a standard. And this is in the same era, and I listen to this band just as much, and this album just as much. This is Metal Church's self-titled. The first takeaway on this, you know, they say that a band is only as good as its drummer, and man, what was the guy's name? I don't fucking remember his name. Kirk Arrington? God, the drums on this are so over the top. Great organic drum tone in the production. And what was the name of that? Merciless Onslaught. The double bass works so fucking great. Kurt Vanderhoof's writing style, it's just, they're in the same vein and wheelhouse as Metallica, but they had more of a northern sound. I mean, a lot of people could say Metallica was kind of the defining factor for the Bay Area sound. Because a lot of the bands that came from there, I know Metallica started in LA, but they did move to the Bay Area. These guys were in that wheelhouse, but they had more of a wet, woodsy take on thrash metal. I love this record. Beyond the Black, In the Blood, Battalions. Oh my God. I think we should drink to Battalions. That's worth drinking to, I think. I just remember me and my buddy Scott driving around the 8th Street Cemetery listening to this and Onslaught's The Force over and over again. Cheers, Kurt Vanderhoof. See, I don't even need a chaser now. That's good. That means it's working. Next up, this is a huge band in my progression. And the early albums are all fantastic, but this album is the pinnacle for this band. This is Voivode's Dimension Hatros. This is a radio station promo that I saved. I have it on CD. I bought the cassette when it came out and wore it out. Bought the CD. This is an album that I own on all 3 formats. And this is probably one of my top 10 favorite albums. There's just something, I mean, Killing Technology was a sign of what was to come. That was probably an 8 out of 10 record for me, and this is a 10 out of 10 record. Man, the power and the movement and the bizarre chords and tunings and Tribal Convictions, Experiment, Technocratic Manipulators, Macro Solutions to Mega Problems, Brain Scan, best song on here, Brain Scan. It's dark, twisted, sci-fi metal, thrash metal. These guys are fucking awesome, and I even liked Nothing Face After It, although the really crisp, overproduced production got to me a little bit. Then, for me, Voivode started to kind of decline, but this album is forever. Play this at my funeral, okay? You heard it here. Next up, love this band. Love this band, and it's mainly because of its singer. Omen, Warning of Danger. First 3 Omen records are all fucking awesome. This being my favorite of the 3. This is the second album. J.D. Kimball, who has now passed from cancer. Huge loss. I know he was out of doing music for a while before he passed, which is a shame because this guy had the ultimate blues croon. Just the way he sang with such a gruff feeling, and very hooky in his vocal performance. God, this is such a good record. The title track alone. And it was hard to pick of the first 3, but this one wore one out. March On, Warning of Danger, Ruby Eyes of the Serpent. Cut out the hearts of the children and let their life's blood slowly fade away. Morbid, but man, it's so good. And the way he sings it, you really feel every fucking word. And this is a great record. Stupid cover, great album. Oh, we're down to this fucking serious business now. And this is serious business right here. Merciful Fate, Don't Break the Oath. This is... Do I pick this? Do I pick Melissa? Do I pick King Diamond's Fatal Portrait? Which to me is the third Merciful Fate record. That has the same vibe as this album. Maybe a little more chorusy, pop structures on some of the songs, but I had a really hard, Tracks like At the Sound of the Demon Bell and shit off of Melissa and Melissa itself. And Evil. I mean, that the thing that kills Melissa for me is Satan's Fall. Although I love the song, I think that song is a fucking mess. You could tell they just strung a whole shit ton of riffs together just to try to make the song longer. There's none of that on here. It's all very well written and considered. The Hank Sherman and Michael Denner guitar duo is to this day my favorite guitar duo in metal. Those two locked in, and they had such a unique way of building riffs together, and the way they soloed off of each other and the dual guitar stuff. Oh, it's fucking perfect. And for me, you know, like you listen to the song The Oath with that long ritual thing at the beginning. I was sure Satan was real, and when I was at the age of this coming out, and scared me a little bit. Of course, you know, you grow up and you realize that shit is bullshit. But perfect album. 10 out of 10. This is my number one album, just for the fact that this band and this album really taught me how to look for a way out of this reality. They taught me how to enter in sonic worlds and escape for a while. And the lyrics on this album, the cover of this album, there is such a mystical aura about this album that it's really hard to explain unless you hear it. And that is Fate's Warning, Awaken the Guardian. This is a 10 out of 10 record. And John Arch, he's like Martin Walkyier. He crams every ounce of music with fucking lyrics, which is fine. And in this case, they're great lyrics. The songs here each tell a tale, and this fucking record, oh my god. You know, I get the same thing from like Summoning records for black metal. You know what I mean? It's very transportative music. It takes you out of your brain into, like, Summoning takes you to like Lord of the Rings fucking worlds. Where this, it takes you to another land, but it almost feels some sort of a weird medieval place within yourself. I don't know. I can't explain it, but this is a perfect record. I mean, I really love their first three albums. I'm not a huge fan of the Ray era, and I really love that Jim and John got back together on John Arch's mini LP and Twist of Fate and Sympathetic Resonance and the newest one. I can't remember the name of it at the moment. Hearing John singing again, I mean, there's parts in this album that still to this day bring tears to my eyes, and that's powerful music. I mean, that was 21 records, and I know it was supposed to be top 10, but we went to 21, and I want to end with two more things. You know, we kind of touched on this in the live stream that we did the other day, but there was no internet back in 83 or 85 or whenever I started listening to this heavier stuff. So you had to rely on compilations. That was your internet. Or thank you lists. You have to go through thank you lists to see what other bands they were thanking, because they were probably friends. They probably played same shows together. You know, through Creator, I found out about Soothsayer because Ventor was wearing a Soothsayer shirt in a magazine article. You know, all these this was our internet back then. I mean, I still, don't get me wrong, I love the internet. I love the convenience of it, but it was more the thrill of the hunt back then. But compilations, this compilation had a humongous impact on my life. And I mean, this is Doomsday News 1, the new generation of heavy metal. Noise Records, Noise International. I've since then bought the book and read about Noise International and found out that the owner of the label was kind of an asshole, which was just disappointing to hear. But man, did this guy, if it had the Noise International logo on it, I was buying it because I knew it was going to be fucking awesome quality thrash. Granted, as the years went on, that started to change. But let's listen to this lineup. Scanner, Galactus. I mean, Scanner is a very much Halloween-derived power / speed metal band from Germany. Their Hypertrace album is a fucking overlooked classic as far as I'm concerned. Amazing stuff. Rage Before the Storm, which was not on any other song, on any other album. Death Row, Corner, Tankard, Sabbat, Halloween, Vendetta, Celtic Frost, Creator, Voivode. I mean, if you saw my fucking pile, it was all basically a direct result of this album. And the second most influential compilation that got me going on this would be this bad boy, The Best of Metal Blade, Volume 1. This wasn't mine. I got this used, and it's in rough shape. I had the cassette. But this right here, Slayer, introduced me to Slayer and Trouble, Hallow's Eve, Celtic Frost, Fate's Warning, Omen, Lizzie Borden, which the first few Lizzie Borden's albums are fucking awesome. I love that shit. Warlord, Hyrax, Metal Church. Again, very influential in my musical metal development. Definitely check this comp out if you want to listen to fun, awesome heavy metal and thrash metal. So that's it. Hopefully Shadows 1028, I illuminated your request a little bit, and it was a lot of fun. This video was a lot of fun. I really appreciate giving me the idea to do it. Maybe I'll do this with death metal. Maybe I'll do this with black metal. We'll see what happens. But fun to talk about this stuff and reminisce a bit. And cheers to all you for watching. I really appreciate it, and I hope you're doing well. Be safe.